Is this helping? Being here. Oof! Now, if I was to say to you that I bet you have something about life that you feel really passionate about, something that you've always really cared about, that would make sense for you, right? However, I bet it also makes sense for you that it's actually quite difficult to articulate just how deeply you care about an area of life, and sometimes how difficult it is to communicate what you deeply care about and why to someone else. You're not alone in this. Without being able to communicate what we deeply care about and understanding why we care about something so deeply can really cause problems for us. And let me explain why. There's actually quite a straightforward reason as to why this conundrum happens for us as HSPs, highly sensitive people, high sensory people. And that's because there is always an area for us that we deeply care about. That for us as HSPs is integrated into the fabric of our identity. It's very difficult to disassociate from what we deeply care about. It's actually a really wonderful and powerful part of who we are. And it's a great reason as to why we are supposed to be in facilitation and in action in order to help bring change and balance in the area that we deeply care about. We really have a responsibility to explore that as HSPs. We're not just here to be sensitive and different and weird. We're actually here to bring a deeper perspective to a very particular area of life that really matters to us. That's our purpose. Our purpose is our perspective as HSPs. And this is why it's not obvious as to why it's difficult to explain, as to why it's not easy to explain this to someone else, and perhaps not easy to really understand the depth to which we care about a particular area of life. And that is because of how deeply you're seeing into that area of life. During my own training and during my practice with my clients, what happens regularly is, as we are in conversation and as I am encouraging them to talk about this area, because it's a big breakthrough when we are able to share just how deeply we care about something, which is often, very rarely we get the opportunity to have the level of conversation that we really want to have. When I'm encouraging a client to talk about this, what happens is there's often an embarrassment about just how deeply they're caring about some area of life. And that's justified, because it's very rare that we are given the right container and the right acknowledgement or the right validation for someone to say, hey, I understand why you care so deeply. I can understand what you're seeing and why this really matters to you. And I can see that you're seeing this in a very different way than most people see it, and that's difficult to talk about. We very rarely get the opportunity to have that conversation. So what happens is we then back away from really owning the depth of this internal experience or this internal relationship that we're having with a particular area of life, because it just doesn't land well when we try to talk about it. And this is a real shame, because what happens then is we're actually not allowing ourselves to really own the depth of our true identity and our relationship with this part of life that deeply matters to us. And that causes us to reject a very important and fundamental part of who we are, which then leads to a lot of problems. That's when we try to fit in. We think it's better to put that under the carpet and just do what everyone else is doing. And that's what leads to depression. Depression is about trying to portray a false persona into the world that isn't actually who we really are. That's this type of depression. Obviously, there's various different types of depression, but one of the main causes of depression for us as HSPs is when we're living this false persona, because nature doesn't like that. Our souls don't like that. It's not allowing ourselves to be in the natural, truthful expression of who we are. And our system protests and doesn't like that. And that's what causes that depression. So my invitation here is to consider and to allow yourself to recognize that the reason it's difficult to articulate the depth to which you care about a particular area of life is because of the depth to which you are experiencing and seeing that area of life. So let me give you an example here. If, for instance, you are caring deeply about the area, let's say, of human purpose, which is very closely linked to the area that I deeply care about. A human purpose could be talked about in many levels of perception or awareness. In fact, there's kind of levels of awareness that we could talk about human purpose, for instance. So human purpose and potential for me is a hugely important part of life. It's what I'm all about, and it's what I've always been about. But it has been really difficult for me to talk about that. I've never been able to understand why other people don't get the importance of potential and purpose in humans as I do. Why there isn't the same level of excitement. And I understand now why sometimes I can lose somebody when I'm talking about this to the passion and to the degree and to the excitement that I talk about it. Because what's happening for me in my experience is I am coming from a place of awareness and relationship to this that formulated for me in my awareness as a child. When I think about purpose and potential, or when I'm in the experience of what purpose and potential means, as a child, what was happening was I was aware of this deeper, natural flow of love and intention and purpose that was happening in the experience of life around me. And for some of you listening to that, you might think, yeah, well, that just sounds like a load of baloney. And some of you that are listening to this might think, okay, I understand what you mean by the depth to which you're experiencing what purpose and potential really means. I didn't choose that. It always feels uncomfortable when I say that, because at the deeper existential level, yes, I chose to be here and to talk about this. But coming into being a human being, it means that we are not in conscious relationship with our area of expertise or our area of fascination to the depth in which it makes sense for us to be able to own it and communicate it. In other words, we have to figure out what that relationship really means. And this is why I'm sharing this with you, because I want because I've been through hell to figure this out in myself. And that's what allows me to now facilitate this in others, because it's been a continuous depth of fascination within me for the last, I'm 50 in 10 days. For the last, the good 30 years that I've been really in the depth of this conversation and really trying to figure all of this out. What I've come to realize is that experience of me being witness to this energetic flow as a child was happening as a result of me being a high sensory person, an HSP, or a highly sensitive person. What makes us an HSP is a difference in our central nervous system. We are neurodivergent. We are wired in a different way, and that wiring is altering our perception, quite literally. It's allowing us to see more deeply into the very fabric of life around us, which is our value. That perspective is our value. So when I talk about potential and purpose, what's happening in my experience and in my knowing, in my heart, is that we are a part of this greater context, whether you want to call that the universe, flow, God, love, source, whatever it may be. I am having an experience that is allowing me to actually witness that energetic reality that I am a part of. I can't disassociate from that. It is a reality for me that my entity is part of a greater intelligence that is flowing in its purpose and its potential to create life, and I am a part of that extension. I am a part of that phenomenon. It's happening within me, and that experience within me is allowing me to perceive the reality of what that phenomenon is outside of me. And that's the depth to which we experience what we deeply care about as HSPs. So in your case, as you're listening to this, allow me to reassure you that there is an area of life that you are deeply fascinated by, that calls your soul. You want to talk about it. You want to make a difference in this area, at whatever level is authentic for you. My invitation is to recognize that you're seeing the reality of that area at a deeper level. You're seeing into the deeper fabric of that. And without me giving you words or giving you what I think you should think about that, my invitation is for you to be very honest about what you are actually perceiving and what you're actually seeing, and to give yourself the opportunity to have this type of conversation with either another HSP or somebody who's trained to facilitate these types of conversations, to allow you to get to the depth of what your relationship with that area of life really means and really allows you to facilitate. So in my case, when I'm sitting in front of another high sensory person that I'm facilitating, my ability allows me to see all the way into the deeper fabric of what that energetic entity, potential and purpose is here to do, because I can feel it, I can experience it, and I am guided to help that person to understand the depth to which they are here to operate as an HSP within their area of expertise. So my invitation is to stop, please, to stop thinking that there's something wrong with you because of how deeply you see the world around you, or that there's something wrong with you because you can't articulate why you're so driven and passionate about something. Please stop trying to fit in like that. Please stop trying to persuade or find external validation about what you care about by trying to persuade others of what you deeply care about and how you're seeing that. That is not doing you any good at all. It's much, much better to be able to have this level of conversation in the right container in order for you to understand just how gifted you are in this particular area of life. So you can then start to apply that gift in ways that it's designed to be applied. So you can start to communicate the importance of this in ways that it's meant to be applied. I spent, 30 years in the false belief that there was something wrong with my perception. There was something wrong with why I deeply cared. There was something wrong with my relationship and my experience of potential, until I started to get in front of a facilitator who could help me to understand this and help me to realize that I was actually highly gifted in facilitating purpose and potential. It's obvious, really. But it wasn't for me for all those years, because we're conditioned to think there's something wrong with us, or to fit in and stop being so, stop thinking so deeply, be like everybody else. That doesn't serve us, and it definitely doesn't serve the world. So by me being able to then own the fact that I'm seeing more deeply and understanding what I'm doing, reveal this ability for me to facilitate that experience in the people that I'm born to facilitate, which is what has been the foundation to my practice for the last eight years. So this is my invitation for you. Please, please, for goodness sake, do not reject the depth to which you care about an area of life. And please begin to explore and dive into the deeper element of what you're seeing. That is what makes you an expert. That is what makes you highly gifted. That is where your value is. And that gives you the opportunity to pursue that and to explore that and to figure out what the problems are that you can solve as a result of your ability to see that deeply. That's how you can get paid really well for being able to provide that solution and to provide that value in that very niche area of life that deeply needs someone like you who can facilitate at that depth. If this is resonating for you and you need help in this area, then book a call, reach out, and I can have a very brief conversation with you. It won't take time in order for me to help you to get an insight into this deeper perspective, for me to help you to understand how gifted you are, how valuable you are, and how you can apply this in the area of life that deeply matters to you. The link's in the description. I'm here for you. It's the most important conversation that I love to have with HSPs, and it's the greatest conversation that you could possibly have in order for you to find your value, your belonging, your meaning, your freedom, and your success. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.